Sorry, hold on. Let me turn on the fan. The big guy's toasty. He might have just had a couple too many carbs. What's up, everybody? Can we hear me? Can you hear me, John?
I can hear you.
Let's
Was
see if
that carb intro for everyone?
All right, here you go. Hey, what you need to know, guys. I was having Red Lobster, all-you-can-eat shrimp with my mom, okay? As a matter of fact, one of my old students who's now a graduate student in college was one of the servers, or was the server, and I didn't want to rush through it. So if you can't respect me being 2 minutes late because of that, then you don't like the cut of my jib, and it ain't going to change, brother, because the big guy likes some endless shrimp. And you know what? If you get the salad and you stick to the red shrimp and the shrimp scampi, pretty carb friendly. So there you go. I don't know about the chocolate cake I had at the end with a fucking black coffee, but let's not talk about that part.
I feel like this is the time I went on vacation and our Discord turned into a fitness channel, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Hey, you know what? Mr. John Gold, JD, not all of us just wake up fucking skinny. Some of us have to work for that shit. So I don't expect you to get it, sir.
I mean, at some point I'm going to have to figure out what to do about my skinny fatness, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I can't believe it hasn't caught up to you yet. I cannot believe it has not caught up to you yet. I want you to be fat so bad. I want you to be the fat friend here.
I mean, it's wintertime. It's Balkan season. Let's go.
Guys, hop in there with your questions. Any questions you have, me and John are here to answer it. I think what me and John would agree with this is what we really want this to be is more about helping you guys than us just fucking spewing out what we think is the best plays tonight, right? And so your guys, good questions from you guys lead this video to be way more productive and way more useful to the entire Discord, even the people that can't be here live. So please get in good questions, ask away, and we will give them good, thoughtful answers to the best of our abilities, okay? So with that said, John, where are we at as far as the total and the line? Are we concerned about anything moving? I don't think there's any weather to be concerned about. It's basically just injury news, right?
Yeah, it's most of the personnel issues that are the moving parts. The totals have looked like they've stayed the same. So it looks like Kendall Hinton was not activated from the practice squad. So I think his target share probably goes to KJ Hamler. At least that's how I've assigned it, with a little bit maybe to Montreal Washington, I guess, would probably be the other player that I would have getting some target share.
I will say they have Tyree. If you see my screen here, just the generics have Tyree Cleveland getting a bigger market share than Montreal Washington.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess they're both gonna get target share. I guess you could probably play it. They're both.
I mean, what I would do is if I'm making a lineup with either one of those motherfathers, I'm probably gonna take that exact lineup, go re-enter it again, and just flip the other guy in there, right?
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I'd probably honestly only be playing those two in the Millie Maker. I probably wouldn't be playing those in anything but that.
Yeah,
I guess the $3, the massive field $3.
I would have killed if I would have just put that one lineup I said the other night on the Monday Night Football stream. If I would have just put that in the $100 single entry, which was my natural inclination to do, I think it would have got. I think it was right around 10th place or so. And like that would have paid off very well. Much more money than I made just putting it in all the just tossing 20 in there, right? So
Yep.
Because of that makes me really just want to go $100 single entry. And if I'm doing that, I'm not even considering fucking slap dicks like that. They're not even on my radar.
That's fair. There's so much other value on this slate. Like there's an obscene amount of value at every position that when I've been building lineups, like I've actually made lineups that have like good equity and like are reasonable lineups that are leaving like 7K on the table.
Wow. And so when you talk about value, surely you're talking about Matt Ryan at quarterback at 9,600. I mean, that's just the gold standard of value.
No, I mean, every other position besides the quarterback position, there's screaming value. Mm-hmm. And when I thought we were going to get Kendall Hinton over KJ Hamler, it was even more so. But even with that, there's still like more value than we.
Now, what was the rumblings about this Hinton guy? Why would he just automatically jump Hamler if he was active? Is he a guy that's been hurt all year, or is he a guy they were calling up from the practice squad?
He's been activated 3 times from the practice squad already. He's like when he's out there, he has had more productive routes than KJ Hamler. He's run more routes and had more targets than KJ Hamler when he's been out there. So I think the thought was that he would get activated.
Okay. So you're gonna come at us with stats and facts tonight. Okay, it's gonna be one of those nights. Great. Okay, so to me, this whole contest comes down to 2 questions. 1, what do we think this game's gonna play like? And B, what the fuck are these running back situations going to look like? To me, that's the two biggest enigmas of this slate. And if you figure out both of those, I think you put yourself in a great position to kill this slate. So if you want to tackle those one at a time, go ahead. I'm going to run the Sims while you do that, just with the generic inputs.
Okay, I've made quite a bit of changes to the Sims or to the inputs, and anyone that watched my video will see what I changed. The only biggest change that I've made now is to like take out the Hinton exposures and reallocate that. I guess I'll reallocate that to Cleveland and Washington. But otherwise, like some of the main changes that I think we need to make in this slate, particularly for the running backs on both teams, starting with the Colts, I would take Matt Ryan's market share, rushing market share, and TD rushing market share way down. I have him at 4 and 8. So maybe he gets 10% of the rushes, but they're almost all like 1 yard sneak type things. So that's like almost no value. Mm-hmm. And then like he does have some chance of popping in those little 1 yard quarterback sneak touchdowns, but it's not 1 in fucking 10.
Right.
So I'd bump that down to 8%. And then I think for Deion Jackson, Phillip Lindsay, and Nyheim Hines, it's really interesting to try to figure out what that market share is going to be, at least in the primary rushing work. I think Hines will probably operate as the primary back. So I've given him a 54% target share. I've given Deion Jackson a 15%.
What type of running back is Deion Jackson? Is he like a big bruiser between the tackles kind of guy? Because I'm going to be honest, I have no fucking idea. No idea.
He's a special teamer, so he actually doesn't normally play. He's normally a special teams guy, so he's like active as a reserve in case people get hurt running back. But I don't think he's actually like had a running back carry this season, or maybe he's had one. So and we all know what Phillip Lindsay is, right? He's a small fucking old man that wasn't good even when he wasn't an old man. But there's a lot of rumblings that Lindsay wants to go out there and put on versus Broncos. So.
Is it viable to just fade this whole running back situation and just know that probably 80% of lineups out there will probably have one of those three guys, and if that running back situation just doesn't pan out, essentially 80% of lineups are almost dead in the water?
Oh, I think it's hard to fade Nyheim Hines. I actually play a league with my buddies that's a full 16-game slate league, and Nyheim Hines, I usually don't play a lot of players in the Thursday night slate, but Nyheim Hines is the one player I'm playing in the full week slate.
What ownership do you have him at? Because that's what's really important to me.
In the week-long slate?
No. In this showdown slate.
Oh, obviously. Sorry. Yes, you don't care about me.
Hey, one of us has had a couple drinks in the last hour. I'm going to let you guess.
I've been doing nothing but grinding stats here. Let's see. I've got Hines at 20% in the captain and 30% in the flex.
Okay, that's about right. So, yeah, I had him somewhere between 50 or 60%, so that doesn't sound too far off. And just with the generic inputs, they got him showing up in the optimals about 63% of the time. So in that scenario, it seems like to me he would be a very good flex play because based on your ownerships with the generic inputs in there, he is very big leverage in the flex, not so much in the captain.
Yeah, on my inputs, when I've run it, I've got him at a captain optimal rate of right at 20%, so pretty much equal leverage. And then I've got a flex rate at almost 50%, so pretty positively leveraged in the flex.
Okay. Wait. Oh, yeah. You have him showing up in the optimals and the flex 50% of the time. What was your captain percentage you had him at?
He shows up right at 20%.
Okay, so basically a push there. Okay.
Yep, a push there, but really strong leverage in the flex.
And then the other one real quick is the running back situation for the Broncos.
Yeah, so that's also gross. So, okay, to your question of whether you can fade one, I think Hines is one of the better plays on the slate. So I'd have a really hard time if I was playing more than like a handful of lineups fading Hines. So, but going down to the Broncos, sorry, what?
He catches the ball so well. You got to think Matt Ryan's going to just give him 2 or 3 dump offs just on first and second down as they're driving the ball, right?
He's actually probably get more than that because the Broncos pass rush is
But I'm saying as a floor, you already know you're going to get 4 or 5 points out of him just in receptions. Like as a floor, you know that.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I think this will be a higher than normal dump off type game because of a strong pass rush from the Broncos. So I like Hines like a ton actually. Okay, so going to the Broncos side of the ball, the running back side, Javonte opens up quite a bit of work. Mike Boone was already working into passing down work even with Javonte before he got injured. So now Melvin Gordon should step into that primary back role. I've got him handling 60% of the rushes. I've got Boone handling 25% of the rushes. I docked Wilson down to 12%, and I've got 2% on Oziggy Boo. But I don't know how the fuck you say that name. But so I think Gordon operates as the primary back. I think the team will like let him be the veteran back and be the like at least first and second down back and the goal line back, if not like a slightly more expanded role than that, like in terms of getting hot hands and staying in on third down. I think Boone will work into like obvious passing situations or if there was a trailing script.
Boone at 6,200, man. That's a price tag right there, brother. That is a price tag.
You need him to get in the end zone, and his best chance to do it would probably be a pass because I don't think he'll get goal line.
Do you really have him at 9% ownership? Because that's what Run the Sims has him at right now. Is that accurate? That seems a little low.
Let's see.
Because they have, and
Boone, they got him at like 15% in the captain and like 10% in the flex.
Wait, 15% of people are going to play Boone in the captain? No way. Right? No way.
Dude, there's not that many captains that are viable. I think so. I think it basically gets spread between like 5 guys. Melvin Gordon, Hines.
Judy will be one.
Sutton.
Pittman.
Yeah. And, Pittman's not going to be that super high.
He'll be double digits. I'll bet you another.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I was looking at the wrong field in my thing. I've got Boone at 3% in the captain.
Okay, I was going to say you're full of fucking shit if you think Boone's going to be that high owned at captain.
Nope. Looking at the wrong field. I should always freeze my top pane. So I'm not just assuming I'm looking at the right column.
All right, so now that we've kind of talked about that running back situation, which to me
so who did you ask me about before? Because I think I quoted you wrong on the person before that as well.
Yeah, when you said it to me, I thought you were full of shit also. Was it? I mean, I asked you about Hines the first time.
Column.
Hines? You had him at 20 and 30%. And I thought 20% in the captain spot seemed a little high for him.
10% in the captain. Yeah, positive leverage in the captain.
This is why you guys love the DGen 75. When people say shit that don't make sense, I call them on it. I say, fuck you, that doesn't make sense.
40% in the flex, so slightly positive flex leverage as well.
Okay, that makes way more
10%
sense.
10% positive flex leverage.
I know somebody had to be looking at this and be like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Especially because they probably could be looking at my numbers and being like, "That's not what your numbers say."
Yeah. What the fuck's the point of you putting out these sims and projections if you're just going to contradict them on the stream?
My bad, guys. I know how to look at columns. I promise.
He's a smart man. He's a little overwhelmed. Okay, I put a lot of pressure on him. I told him 4:10, and then all of a sudden I got the shrimp down the hatch a little bit faster. Got here at 4. He's 10 minutes off. All right, he's 10 minutes off. So the spread. When you see a line like that. What are some different this is a thing that I think me and you are selling that a lot of people aren't selling in the industry near as much, is picking your script and running with it. When you see a line of 42 or a total of 42 and a line of 3.5, like what are some viable game scripts that could play out that maybe not just the norm? Because I think most people think the Broncos are going to get a little bit ahead, they're going to run the ball, and they're going to win this game like 20-17. I think that's probably how most people will build their lineups. So do you have any counter builds to that, like counter scripts that might be viable for tonight? Because we nailed the one on Monday. We really did. And so let's see if we can kind of do that again here.
The build you just subscribed is the build that I am playing most predominantly as like an under game that the Broncos win. Okay. But I think the next most common, or not maybe not next most common, but the next most frequently occurring would be that Denver actually cooks and the Colts can actually keep pace. And so instead of getting an under game, you get an up-tempo passing game.
Okay.
Like if the Colts decide that without JT, they're going to throw the ball. Pittman is healthy after that week 2 injury, presumably he's getting more healthy. And so you could see a game where Russ is able to cook, quote unquote. We don't have Javonte anymore. So both teams are presumably going to rely a little bit more on the passing game. And so if you get some early gash plays that put points on the board early, this could be a game that gets up tempoed. So I think in that case, you'd want to be playing more of the pass catchers, and you probably could play both quarterbacks, or at least think more of playing at least one of the quarterbacks. Because in a lot of builds, when you're talking about the low scoring builds, kind of like what we talked about on Monday Night Football, with the 49ers game, it was pretty easy to build lineups that made sense and you could easily see happening and did happen without a quarterback at all. Whereas tonight, I think that's very possible in that first build you described. But once you start talking about that second build, you want to have 1 or 2 quarterbacks in those builds.
Hey, is Shaq Leonard playing tonight? I know that the Colts defense, damn, because he is they have such a better run defense when he plays. That I was gonna say that could be the one thing that right there could go ahead and get me off of Melvin Gordon. But
yeah, I believe I'm like 95% sure I saw he was out.
Is there not a narrative out there or a game script where the Colts get the lead and the Colts are playing from ahead and Russell Wilson and the Broncos piece of shit offense is playing from behind? Is that not something that could happen?
Yeah, so in that case, what do we see happening in terms of the running back work? Do they really let Philip Lindsay just pound the rock from ahead? Like in that build, I think Philip Lindsay's a must at $400.
Yeah, no kidding.
The weird thing about his price tag, though, at $400, he could score 4 points, which is like an insane return on a 400 guy, and still not get there. Like it's weird because there's so much value. You almost don't need that value. And so if you look at like his ownership, it's really not insane.
What do you have him at? Because I'm seeing 35% here on Run the Sims. That seems astronomically high to me for a guy that we're not even sure is going to play 10 snaps.
The right column.
All right, we're gonna hop over and answer some questions.
2% in the captain and like 17 in the flex.
Okay, so dramatically lower than what fan or not.
So 17 in the flex is like, I mean, I think people just are seeing that they don't need that low salary. If you put a 400 guy that projected for like 7 median points, or I think 8 median points, whatever he projects for, and you put him in that the KC Tampa Bay game on Sunday Night Football, like he would have been 80% owned because you needed it to fit in Kelsey and Mahomes and Brady and Evans and whatever. But you just don't need that here.
Sir, I need to open up all the Matt Ryan I can because he's a god among men. All right, I'm kidding, everybody. Fuck Matt Ryan. All right, hey, let's answer some questions real quick, and then we'll come back and talk about the game flow and some kickers and defenses and all kind of the periphery stuff. Kyle wants to know, Deion Jackson over Hines. That is his question. You've been studying these running backs a lot harder than me, John. I'm going to defer to you, sir.
I can't say I would take him over him. I don't particularly like Deion Jackson, although he may work in ahead of Lindsay. Like it's a really big unknown with what Lindsay's role is going to be. I think him and Lindsay are probably pretty interchangeable, but I think Hines has like by far and away the
But
best
I think we can
to
agree to this.
Deion
Deion Jackson's going to be a lot lower ownership than Lindsay, right? Just because he's slightly more expensive and it's probably not somebody anybody's heard of, right?
1,000%.
So
I
would play Deion Jackson over Lindsay probably just for the ownership leverage, but I would never play him over Hines, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you could definitely make an argument to play him over Lindsay. And like, since we really have no idea what their workload would be, like that's a decent gamble. I don't think it's as good of a gamble as to say that you think his workload would be better than Nyheim Hines. I think that is probably just wishful thinking. But I mean, look, you could totally be wrong. We have no fucking clue what this team will do with this.
I mean, tonight is more projecting on a showdown slate than you hardly ever get. I mean, we're making big projections on how we think the teams are even going to put their players out there. In week 5 of NFL, that's very rare to be doing that, right? That could only happen with both teams having mega injuries like both of them have had.
Yeah, and it's super fun for Showdown. Like it makes it a great GPP slate because like if you have a lean of what you think these teams will be doing, you can get unique. Like there isn't going to be like insane chalk pieces really. So if you have a lean, go for it.
All right, let's answer next questions. M Gambling Pause says running options limited with injuries to Surtain covering Pittman. Alex Pierce may be a great play. Gregory is out for Denver. Indy may have time to throw. I can see them throwing. I got to tell you, probably my sneakiest play that I like is if I'm buying the narrative, which I think I am, that Indianapolis is probably going to be playing from behind because they fucking suck. And Patrick Surtain is a legit receiver, and he can, at least limit the amount of targets Pittman gets. I really feel like one of these Colts second wide receivers is due for a breakout. Is that going to be Alex Pierce? Is that going to be who the hell's the other one that I'm not due? No, there's another one.
Pierce Campbell sucks.
Paris Campbell. That is the other one. Yes, I know. He does suck. But you know what? All it takes him is not sucking dick one time all year, and he gets your lineup there. I'm just saying. He will be on the field more than Doolin. And that's what I want to see.
I think he'll be on the field more than Doolin and Pierce. That's what's insane is he's out on the field running like 80% of routes, but he's just running wind sprints because the dude sucks. Hopefully the team at some point will wake up and substitute in either Pierce or Doolin. Now, Pierce got hurt. He had that concussion, so he was out a week. Yep. And so, that could have slowed his trajectory on overtaking Campbell.
I just feel like that's a place because it's not like those guys are exactly just free pieces because they're super cheap. They're all relatively decently priced. $3,600 for Campbell, $5,400 for Pierce. I think they're going to be probably right at 10% spots for guys that have 20-point upside in a perfect matchup.
I like Pierce quite a bit.
Yeah, the Indianapolis second receivers is a sneaky place, and maybe you want to say their second receivers, their tight end. Okay, that's fine. I really like Indianapolis pass catchers specifically that are not Michael Pittman. That's kind of right now. I feel like that's going to be my lean tonight. Like that's kind of a narrative I'm chasing. Now that's not a full game narrative, but at least that's a team narrative that I could consider, right?
Yeah, and so speaking of the tight ends, like I think at least on the Indy side of the ball, it's like becoming slightly more clear that Mo Alley is going to be the guy there over Kylan Granson. And so like I think Around the Sims has him a little closer than what I would have him projected. I'd probably be bumping down Kalen a little bit and bumping up Mo Alley. I think I know it's kind of hard to like be reactionary off a 2-touchdown game from Mo Alley, but I think that's probably the way he's trending.
Who's the other tight end you're talking about?
Kalen Granson is the other tight end for.
Oh, there Colts. He is. I was like overlooking him. I see him. Yeah. Big old white boy, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nick says,
so that would probably be my lean there.
DJ, and I'll be your fat friend. Nick, you're already my skinny friend. So how the fuck are we going to deal with that? Delbert, what's up, you motherfather? Would you play 2 quarterbacks? That's what Ryan wants to know. I'll lead off on this one. I do see a script that nobody's going to play, that this game is, I think I talked about this on Showdown Hoedown, 31-28, something along those lines. And if this game's 31-28, you're probably going to want to have both quarterbacks with some pass catchers, because in a game like that where people score, they're just going to naturally outscore the defenses, the kickers, and the running backs just due to increased scoring, increased plays, increased passing, increased targets. And so because of that, I could see a world where I play both quarterbacks and 4 receivers, 2 on each, and maybe put one of the quarterbacks at the captain. I could see that. That would be a build nobody's going to play in this game. But if you want to take a gamble and think, well, maybe all these running back situations don't work out, or maybe you play Hines and then you stack him with Ryan and Pittman and then run it back with Wilson and maybe 2 of his, Hamler and whatever, maybe you could still fit Judy in that lineup. That could be a viable play too. But that is a way to do it. Overall, though, the only way I play 2 quarterback is if I'm playing a script specifically where I think both quarterbacks could get there. And I think that's the only script both those guys could get there. John, what say you?
I think script, like when we talked about alternative scripts where this game is a shootout, like you just said, I think that is like very viable for both quarterbacks to get there. Otherwise, like if we think about like what's most likely to occur, from what we've seen on these teams, both of these teams would prefer to run the ball. And so like I think this is a lot more akin to that San Fran game that we saw the other night than like some of the gunslinging games that we've seen. But that said, when both your best 2 running backs go down on both sides or both teams, like who knows if that like switches up the tempo. And so like to the extent you're taking shots on alternative game scripts, like we talked about a minute ago, I think it makes a ton of sense to play them.
Right. When you run the ball and it's 2nd and 10 after every first down run play, you'll find they pass the ball a lot more. A wise man once told me.
The problem though is like I think you still want or not the problem, I guess, but I think you still want a wide receiver in your captain spot. Unless you think these guys are throwing like touchdowns to various guys in a high scoring and in a low scoring slate, the wide receivers just have a much better chance of being optimal over their quarterbacks.
Full PPR does it. And the 3-point bonuses for 100 yards, that shit just adds up so quick. Relax with TBJ says, how's the secondary for both these defenses? Well, the first thing I would point you to is don't forget that Denver does have a guy out. They have Patrick Surtain, who's very good, but they're a solid secondary, certainly not one of the top ones in the NFL. And as for the Colts, I don't think they have a very great secondary. Do you know that off the top of your head, John?
So, like we talked about, Indy's without Shaq Leonard and Traquan Lewis. So, like, their pass rush is going to be really hurt, which, like, in theory will make, like, it easier to pass against them, right? If they're not able to, like, put the pressure on Russ. To the extent they had a stronger pass defense, I wouldn't be as concerned this week because I don't think they'll have their typical pressure that they normally bring.
There you go. Hope that answered it for you. All right, let's go to Delbert. I feel like the Broncos defense just takes over tonight. Any reason I shouldn't play them at the captain and single entry? I realize it could be a chalky play. I'll let you lead off on that one, John.
I don't think it'll necessarily be a chalky play. I think it may funnel you into a construction there won't be that many differing constructions because presumably you'll play running back captain, you'll play Melvin Gordon, you'll probably play one wide receiver from Indy and or Naheem Hines. You probably play one kicker in that build. And so you're pretty much just getting funneled into a build that isn't very unique from the other people making that build. So in a vacuum, the captain defense isn't that highly owned. It just pushes you into a build because when you start thinking of a script that makes a captain optimal or a defense optimal captain, it's just a pretty narrow set of builds. So that said, I don't have a problem with it tonight. I think Denver's defense is a very, very strong play. I prefer them in the flex. I probably won't captain them myself. But I think they're a really strong play in the flex.
Yeah, I would say play him with Melvin Gordon just because it's so strongly correlated. And if you end up flipping that and putting Melvin Gordon as the captain and then the Denver's defense in one of your flexes, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I also think that that's going to make a lot of sense to about 50 million other people. And so if you do that, you're going to have to get really creative with some of your other spots because you're going to be playing a lot of 4v4s versus people because so many people are going to start with Melvin Gordon as the captain and then correlate that with the Broncos defense because if Gordon's doing well, it's almost certain that Broncos defense is going to be in a position to have a big night.
So what I like in that build, I was just thinking about a way to be unique is make your build with Pittman as your Indy player. And then, or maybe two Indy players, but I'm guessing in that build is probably 5 Denver, 1 Indy. Mm-hmm. And for your Indy player, play Pittman, but then instead of saving that lineup with Pittman, build it as if you can only spend your salary that Pittman costs, and then just drop Pittman down to Alec Pierce because there the thought is one, you're going to be completely unique. I don't know if I talked about it on the show, but I know D-Gen and I talked about it at least off there last week at one point during the Monday night during one point during the San Fran game, the lineup that ultimately ended up winning. The exact lineup, except it flipped Debo in the flex to Ayuk. Everything else the same was leading the Millie Maker early before Debo caught his touchdown, and it was only split 3 ways, whereas that exact build with Debo split 232 ways. So make your build with Pittman as your wide receiver for Indy, and then just flip him to Pierce or flip him to Doolin or probably Pierce, but whatever. Flip him to one of the other wide receivers and don't change anything else. So you leave that chunk of salary, that delta between the two on the table, and your build will be so unique. And all you really need in a low-scoring game, because in that build, you're assuming Indy's getting boat raced, right? And so if Indy's getting boat raced, all you need is their one touchdown to be Pierce over Pittman, and that lineup's the nuts. So that's pretty interesting.
All right. Nick says Boone can't catch. He missed some easy catches last week. Nick, I love you, but you're captain overreaction, right? You got to stop doing that shit. How he caught the ball last week is called anecdotal evidence, and you don't want to get caught up in making plays this week based on some anecdote that you saw last week, right? If there was some verifiable statistics that over multiple weeks he's dropped some passes, then I'll grant it to you. But I'm telling you, man, don't fall in love with, I watched this guy last week, he sucks. Come on, Nick, look at me. You look at the camera right now. How many times have you watched a guy in your golf lineups fucking go out and shoot 8 over on Thursday and Friday and just completely tank your lineups? And you're like, he fucking sucks. I watched him, guys. The stats don't even tell you how bad he is. And then the next week, he's T1 Saturday afternoon. Okay, it happens all the time. You just can't go off of anecdotal evidence like that. So I tell you to pump the brakes on the Boone can't catch thing. If that sells you, that's fine. But I don't know if your perception is always reality. And I tell you that coming from a guy who's very guilty of doing that in the past myself.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think plus the team's pretty limited in options. So if they have a better option, he's going to find his ass back on the practice squad.
Plus his great
great
grandpappy was Daniel Boone, and that guy was a badass. So I got to assume. That's a U.S. history joke that precisely 3, there's 42 people in here, precisely 3 of you got it. I appreciate you guys. Okay, I like the Broncos defense. I do not think tonight would be a shootout. I don't disagree with that. And if that's the narrative you want to go with, TBJ, I kind of, that's not a bad one to go with. Only thing I would caution you is a lot of people are going to go with that, with that game script. And it makes sense because according to the score and the teams and everything we know about them, it makes sense. But a great way to be different in Showdown is to attack a different type of game script. That's all I would say to you, right? You got anything you would add there, John?
No, I think that's definitely the most likely outcome in this game. I also think that's the outcome the field is playing the most. So exactly what you said, just be thoughtful on how you're going to play that build.
On Showdown Hoedown, I mentioned that kickers, this game being in Denver and the lighter air, does that even 5% increase their value that like 50-yarders are much more on the table tonight than they probably normally are?
Definitely, and I think it also, if like we're projecting a low scoring game script, like kickers are also more valuable, like we talked about on that Monday night game. Like when there's low points, it's very easy for a kicker to outscore the guys around them.
You wouldn't happen to know off the top of your head where the stadium sits in Denver, do you? Like northeast, south, or west in Denver?
No.
You know what?
No, I've been to Denver once in my life.
We're just going to use a generic one. We're going to say it's in northwest. Let's see. Wind Finder.
You looking at Wind Finder?
Yeah.
I didn't see any weather notes.
Yeah, so I see nothing as far as wind. Because the other side of that is it does get a little windier there. North to south, I believe. Thanks, Chris. You're the best, brother. So there you go. I you know what? I know that's kind of a lame thing, but if you're going to be playing the low-scoring thing, I'm not even opposed to a kicker and the captain tonight, which you never hear me say. You'll never hear me say that. But there is legit paths to a kicker getting a 40-yarder and two 50-yarders tonight and being the fucking nuts.
I mean, in a low-scoring game, that's definitely possible. I probably am just going to lose in that case.
I say that. Okay, McManus is a really good kicker. I know that. I don't know much about Chase McLaughlin. Not going to lie to you, brother. But I will tell you, with generic inputs, he is 14% leverage.
So when I was building earlier, one of my notes that I wrote down was that I need to boost McManus and the Denver's D.
Oh, they just not getting enough love?
Yeah, they weren't getting enough love when I was building. So, yeah, and I like put in some pretty specific rules and shit. So it may have been
McManus,
just, like,
they only have him showing up in the captain's rate at 10% of the time. That seems a little low with this total and his ability at home and being favored. I would think his numbers should probably be closer to 20 that he shows up in the optimal.
Let's see. When I ran all my numbers, I've got him optimal. Wait, McManus or Chase?
McManus is who I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's what I couldn't figure out either. So when I was running Sims, I don't know if you saw it on the video. When I was running Sims, McManus comes in so much less optimal than McLaughlin, but there's only a $200 price difference, and the Denver is projected for more points. So I can't figure out why it would possibly be.
I think I found it. If you go look at McManus, he has a 5% interception rate. So what they're saying is they're going to run a fake and he's going to throw an interception. That negative one.
Get the fuck out of here! I'm making that 0. He's not. His ass ain't throwing up. No, Chase has got a 5% interception rate.
John, that was called humor, brother. It's called humor.
Do they have like a
there'll be no jokes around Jungle, JD.
No, because I've always wondered this on the inputs because I can't change any of the volatility or any of the inputs for
you think it has
kickers.
Yeah, and there's not even something where you can like change the touchdown percentage, right? Like part of it could be the Broncos are so much more efficient in the red zone that they end up scoring touchdowns, whereas the Colts suck in the red zone, so they end up settling for field goals. That would be something that I think that would be quantitative, but I don't think you see that here.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that the back end of Run the Sims is smart enough to be like, okay, guys, JT is out, therefore their red zone efficiency is going to go down.
How dare you besmirch? How dare you besmirch a website that I have a great partnership with? They are definitely smart enough to do that.
Website, but like, no, that's like you would be able to manipulate that on the front end. I would be able to change efficiency then.
He gave the show a shout out on his email today, so now we're best fucking friends.
Oh, Justin's the man.
All right. Zach wants to know, does the Hinton news change your ownership from earlier today? That's Zach.
Yes.
There you go, Zach. Answer it for him, John.
Yeah, I need to do another run as soon as we get off here because I think KJ Hamler will be slightly more popular, I'm guessing. But yes, I do think there are changes to ownership. So if you guys give me a second, as soon as we get off the phone, I will get a new just ownership probably. I think the projections, like if anything, I would flip probably KJ Hamler's projection into what I had for Hinton, which I think was like 4.1. I'd probably give that 4.1 projection to Hamler instead. But then otherwise, I think everything else remains the same, but ownership will change. So I will have editor send out some updated ownership here in a minute.
Poor editor. Working like a mule. All right, here we go. Woody for the win. Is it crazy to look to a bill that resembles Monday Night Football, the main pass catchers for each team, one captain, Broncos defense, Hines, McManus? I mean,
100%.
I would say not only is that viable, I would say that's probably just based on how I think this game will probably go with inefficient offenses and what I perceive to be slapdick quarterbacks, I think it's probably almost the most likely to get there. But you also got to remember, when I say most likely, that still probably means only maybe 10 to 20% of the time that lineup gets there. But I would still say that script more than any other script gets there. So if you believe that that's how it's going to play out, I think it's very viable. Not only do I think it's viable, I think it's the most likely. But I will tell you, that will be a common narrative among the industry. And if that lineup hits, like, don't forget our boy John right here, who's on the headset with us. He won the Millionaire Maker the other night, right? But he split it with 200, playing that narrative, that exact narrative. But he split it with 278 people because, people were you could kind of see where it was going on that, right?
And I've talked to a few guys that were in that chop that are like pretty well-known DFS players that are actually pretty upset that they let that lineup get into their set. And actually, when I was doing my calling, I had that lineup projected, I think, for 71 dupes, and I let it in because it had a higher equity than I thought. Like, it still had equity at 71 dupes, but it ended up being duped 232 times. Which
and you're getting that off of product ownership, right? Like, you're multiplying okay. Just want to make sure, for everybody that doesn't know, basically how they do that is you just take the projected ownership for all 6 players, you multiply them times each other, and then you go take that number and multiply it times the total number of entrants in that Millionaire Maker tournament, which I believe, how many was in it that night? 170,000 or so, John?
Yeah, I think it was like 150 that night. I think tonight's 176.
So there you go. So you multiply it, and you multiply that number of your product ownership times the total number of people in it, and it would give you a pretty good idea of what your expected dupe rate is. And John projected that lineup that he won the Millionaire Maker with would have only been duped 71 times and ended up being duped 270 times.
Yeah, and so I think that was probably a similar analysis a lot of people were doing. And again, that's like a pretty dirty way to do projected dupes. Like, that's only taking ownership into account. There's things like how much salary you spend. Like, if you had the same product ownership on 2 lineups, but one left $2,000 on the table and one spent all your salary, obviously the one that spends all the salary is going to be significantly higher duped. Same thing with that lineup. I think it became higher duped than what it was projected because of that game script was the popular script that everyone thought, quote unquote, would happen. So I think a lot of people like me that normally wouldn't put that lineup in, let that lineup go in because they're like, well, it's the most likely to fucking happen, and there's not really that many other good plays on this slate.
Did you ever do the math on if it was a 71-person dupe, what you would have won? It probably would have been closer to 20,000 or so, right, as opposed to just 6,000?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would be it'd basically be roughly about 4 times higher, right?
Well, you drop off all the low prices. You drop off the
true.
bottom
So probably
100 and whatever
closer,
low.
Yeah, it would have been closer to like 5 or 6 times higher, probably.
Yeah,
so it probably would have been closer to
milli.
Yeah, it probably would have been closer. I would guess somewhere between 20 to 25,000, just kind of running the numbers in my head.
So yeah, it's not ideal, and like I said, I've heard a couple guys say that they wouldn't have let that lineup in had they known it would have been due.
Can I still call you a fucking loser?
Yeah, no, honestly, there were people that were legit upset with winning. I think Shit My Money posted, I have the winning lineup and I'm still going to be tilted by all the fucking screenshots.
Yeah. It's it wasn't a great one. And the worst part is, I don't know if people have heard me say this, but if Robbie Gould makes that kick with 3 or 4 minutes to go, then he would have had the exact same amount of points as Gay had, and that would have added another 150 people onto that train. There would have been 2 trains that would have got there with the exact same score because everybody had the same 5, and then now both kickers with the same amount. It would have been over a 400-person train that got there, and I would have been in at that time. But Robbie Gould said, "Fuck you, Degenerate 75. You're a golf guy."
In order to change that train from a 230-person train to a 3-person train, the only change in the lineup was to flip Deebo Samuel to Ayuk. And so, I think that is a major lesson for tonight, because if we are thinking that this is going to be a similarly low-scoring game and this Indies offense is going to have limited production, then there is absolutely plenty of worlds where Alec Pierce, Austin Doolin, fucking Paris Campbell, whatever, can outscore Michael Pittman.
John, what you're saying makes sense, but you got to remember, so many people listening to this right now are going to do a single entry, a 3 max, maybe a 20 max, and I don't know if you're talking about MME, right? And I don't think if you're making 1 or 3 or 5 lineups, you really want to be making too many crazy builds like that, because if you're only entering pools with maybe 1,000 people, I think that you do just go ahead and run it back with the 1 Colt being Pittman and not worry about the dupe rate, because there's just not going to be that many people in it. They're going to be playing a 5-1 Broncos onslaught that you need to worry about chopping it. Yeah, you might dupe it with 2 or 3 people, but that's not enough to justify, because what you keep saying is if I would have played Ayuk over, you play Ayuk over Samuel, then you're way different than everybody else, right? Yes, that is very true, but at the same time, that lineup didn't get there and didn't even get close to getting there.
Yeah, and I think Debo's a slightly different situation than Pittman also, though. Debo has like a unique running back and wide receiver role, and the dude's like definitely more talented than Michael Pittman, let's be clear. And so I think the gap between him and Ayuk is bigger, but it's really not necessarily like what happened on that specific slate. It's more the idea of illustrating like you can make little tweaks and not sacrifice too much projection and get yourself wildly different. And if you're playing even 2 or 3 lineups in the Millie Maker, you shouldn't be firing like your chalk lineups. You should be giving yourself a chance to make some money.
All right, guys, last time for a question. We try to keep these to 30 to 40 minutes. We're already at 42. Actually, we're probably only at 40. Thanks a lot, fucking Red Lobster. So, by the way, I don't ever eat chain restaurants, but I made an exception today, and I don't fucking regret it. All right, here we go. Last call for questions. Joseph Golding wants to know, what's your favorite single-entry captain? John, I'm going to let you lead off with that one, brother. No, I'm going to lead it because fuck you, because I already know what you're going to say. I would take Nyheim Hines at my captain. I feel like in so many different scripts he can get there as the captain. Yes, he might be a little chalky at that captain, but I just feel like he's almost script proof. If the Colts are leading, the Colts are behind, it's a slog, it's a shootout, I could see him getting there in all 4 of those types of slates. And so because of that, I kind of like Nyheim Hines as my captain at that price tag. And surprisingly enough, I thought he'd be 80% owned at that price tag with the increased role, but I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to be maybe 50 to 60% cumulative ownership between captain and flex. What do you say, John?
So I have 2. I think my first favorite would be Sutton, and that's slightly more for larger field. I think Sutton is a slightly more gambly captain pick, but I think his ceiling is probably the highest on the slate. Maybe Pittman, but Sutton would be probably my first choice as a captain. My second is like really close would be Melvin Gordon. I think the Broncos have like a much easier path to cruising, and I think like they would rely on Melvin in that situation. So yeah, I think those are probably my 2 favorite. I think in both of those builds you can play Broncos defense pretty easily. I definitely am playing Russ if I'm playing Sutton, but I'm not definitely playing any quarterbacks if I'm playing Melvin. I think you could build the build we talked about with Melvin, the defense, and kickers and 1 pass catcher type thing.
Last 2 questions. Do you think a 5-1 Denver can win the single entry? I mean, yes, definitely. If I'm playing a 5-1 onslaught, I know it's the chalkier side, but I do feel like a Denver 5-1 onslaught gets there. Give me the kicker, the defense. Give me Gordon, maybe even 2 pass catchers, or a pass catcher and Wilson. I could see all 5 of them getting there. You run it back with probably Hines in that situation, maybe Pittman, and I think you could definitely get there. What do you think? You think a 5-1 could win the single entry, John?
Oh, I'll have plenty of 5-1. I mean, so when you say could win the single entry, I mean, it can win the Millie Maker because it can be the Stone Cold Nuts. And if it can win the Millie being the Stone Cold Nuts, it can definitely win your single entry. So I think 5-1 is probably one of my favorite builds. But in the 5-1, I think I almost always want to have Denver's defense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. All right, last question from our dude, Zach Parker. To be clear, by the way, when I see Zach's name, the first thing I always think of, go get in the tournament tonight, the Thursday Night Football. I've stopped doing the Patreon drawings because we've basically just replaced them with all these tournaments. We do a golf one, we do a week-long football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. It's a way to win tickets to build with me and John and have a chance to win a Millionaire Maker. Our dude Zach puts those together, so make sure to go hop in them. They're fucking free and they're fun. So there's no reason to not be in them, Bob. All right, Zach wants to know. To be clear, the most common game script people will run tonight is a low scoring with defenses and kickers, relatively speaking, highly owned. Is that correct? I'll answer first. I think so. All you got to do is go look at the totals. You got a competitive line with a low overall total, Zach. You have 2 offenses that have been very anemic this year who are both missing arguably their biggest superstars due to injury. To me, everything about it seems like that's the most logical way to play it. And if it's the most logical way, you got to know tout sites are pushing it. And when tout sites push it, that means thousands and thousands of people are building lineups like that. Even if they're only doing a few lineups a piece, when you get thousands and thousands of people building a couple lineups, that ends up with a ton of lineups looking like that.
So completely random, but do you know what I heard when you said thousands and thousands?
Go ahead.
Chance you used to watch wrestling back in the day? The Rock and his millions and millions of fans.
I mean,
oh man, The Rock was a
me and him look about the same with our shirts off, so we got that in common.
Perfect.
All right, so you agree with me on the question Zach asked?
Yeah, I think that is definitely the most common, Bill. I think like that is going to be exactly what you said, what tout sites are pushing.
Now, to be fair, I also think it's probably the most logical outcome for this game. And so, like, I'm not shying away from it. I'm just trying to find ways like that 5-1 with the defense build, like other ways to build it that I think will be unique and I think can still have some positive leverage. And so, like, I promise you, I am playing that lineup where I drop Pittman to Doolin. And when I ship Solo in the Millie, I can't wait to dance in the chat.
Dancing naked in the streets. I'm going to have to go bail his ass out from jail. Red eye to Charlotte. Here I come. Hey, one quick question. This is just a friend-to-friend question, okay? Your boy DGen75 is feeling like a huge bitch, okay? And there's a basketball game tonight, pickup basketball game. I love a good old basketball cardio. It's the only sport I do that doesn't feel like, fucking exercise, and I really want to go play in that. And I have to leave here pretty soon to make it to the game. It's a good hour away to go play, right? Furthermore, when I get back tonight, I got to do a special Rosetta Stone for the Friday night college football slate, and I need to put that together tonight so I can have it out tomorrow. Plus, I was looking at doing some round 2 showdown tomorrow for golf based on the data I see today, and my week-long lineups are off to a fucking smoking start. Can I just fucking set out tonight?
Yeah, man, no one's going to give you crap if you don't play tonight. All that said, my main takeaway from what you just said there is that you live somewhere that you have to drive an hour to go to a pickup basketball game.
Well,
Holy
I see. I don't think you understand. It's actually only about 3 miles away, but we're still horse and buggy around here. So shit takes 3 miles. That's a fucking trek. That's a commitment, sir. Okay, so you gotta understand the people and the places that you're talking about. This is fucking Central Oklahoma, brother. Okay, you heard of the Dust Bowl? That was last week, motherfather. All right.
Man, if I start my car, I'm like borderline angry.
Somebody just clicked onto this video right now, and they just caught this live, and like, what the fuck is going on in here? Exactly. You need to go watch the replay. It devolved quickly, brother. It devolved quickly. Hey, everybody, thank you for being here. Me and John are always going to do these. We kind of got a new schedule that we will always do these streams for Monday and Thursday Night Football. John's still going to do the week-long with me on YouTube, but I'm just going to do those generic Showdown Hoedowns on YouTube by myself and just make them quick and make them the night before. Just kind of bite-sized episodes. The real stuff where we get down in the weeds like we have tonight are only going to be for the Discord. That's just how it's going to be. I know you guys don't fucking mind that. I just want y'all to know. Joseph Golding says, thoughts on Kuchar? What a huge bitch. He's killing my fucking donkey chalk pivots, right? He was one of my big donkey chalk pivots, so fuck him. Hey, you're welcome, Jean Gustafsson. We'll see you guys later. The big guy's got to get off here. I need more water. I don't know if you saw me chugging it. The big guy's thirsty. So we will talk to you guys later. Good luck tonight. If you have any questions, shoot us a DM. I'll check it while I'm on my horse and buggy. It'll be a little bumpy, so there'll probably be typos, but I'll still respond to your ass. Talk to you guys later.